We have new microphones, so this is the trial run for this. So we will just see how it goes. Winnie has promised to kick me if I don't use the microphone properly. All right, starting with public correspondence. We had the public correspondence that we mentioned at the last meeting from Rachel Bryan about kindergarten class size, and Mrs. Murphy has responded. We had other public correspondence. The president's report, I wanted to give a brief update on the superintendent search. If any of you have been on the website, the superintendent search timeline is up. We are receiving resumes from our ad. The closing date for that is November 10th. So we have resumes in-house right now. We expect we will have more by the closing date. And that's the Personnel Committee, which is also serving as the preliminary search committee, will be meeting to discuss our next steps. We are looking at the election on Tuesday. The board never says how anyone should vote, but we do encourage everyone who has not voted already by mail-in ballot or early ballot to get out the vote. And also, I've been asked by several constituents about whether there is any sort of ripple effect from the federal shutdown that might affect us here in Glen Ridge. And the answer right now is that there is little impact on us right now. However, in terms of the Glen Ridge community and families in the Glen Ridge community, I think that the fact that federal employees are facing not being paid, SNAP benefits may expire, money run out that serves as a vital safety net for families. So there will be perhaps an impact on some Glen Ridge families. Thanks to an inquiry from Kristen and also discussion with the Executive Council, the Home and School Executive Council, we've talked about the various food drives that the home and schools are having coming right up. We also reached out to the borough to talk about possibly creating a resources list of suppliers of food and other necessities that would be accessible to Glen Ridge families. So, more to come on that, but the spirit is certainly that we will give help where we can. The borough has put out an announcement also that there will be some property tax forgiveness for people who are unemployed as the result of the federal shutdown. And that is the president's report, superintendent's report.
Greetings, Glen Ridge. Welcome to fall. The leaves are turning colors. Look at the autumnal Board of Ed members festive. And what else happens in October? The district testing report. And I know that's why everyone is here tonight to hear this riveting testing report. We're in good shape. And here to present the testing report is Principal John Lawler and Principal of Ridgewood Avenue School, Dr. Keisha Harris. And they will take you through the testing report. These results are reflective of last school year. Would you guys like the clicker? Okay. Thank you. Look at that. We're clicking. We're doing things. All right. Good evening, everyone. Good evening, members of our Board of Education and our student. Holler at you. All right. The purpose here is just to walk you through our testing report from the previous year. Shall we go ahead and click away? All right. Let's start with language arts on grades 3, 4, 5, and 6, which is my portion. Overall, and looking at the data, Ridgewood Avenue School continues to perform above the state average. Grades 3 and 4 have some strong gains, and students are showing steady improvement in reading comprehension as well as written response. Grade 5, we have stable results, strengths and main idea, vocabulary, and text evidence. Grade 6, slight dip,
particularly in extended writing and citing evidence across text. And so our instructional focus moving forward is to increase their writing stamina and analytical depth using the school-wide reading program, which is grounded in authentic literature.
Thank you, Dr. Harris, and good evening, members of the board and the public, parents, colleagues. Looking at the NJSLA, this is a test that is administered at the middle high school for grades 7, 8, 9. We administer this in the month of May. As you can see, we see consistent performance of our students going into 7th and 8th grade. When we see a number like we see with our 9th grade class, where it dips a little bit for the meeting or exceeding, that's an area that we dig a little bit deeper. We look at the data, particularly as we get them ready for, they don't test in 10th grade, but they will take the NJ GPA graduation proficiency assessment in 11th grade, which basically covers similar standards for ELA and math. So we want to make sure that we address those as they get to 11th grade when they'll test again.
Okay, this is an eye chart. And we're not going to act like we can see it either. So my commentary in terms of the slight dip that we did see in grade 6 is also reflected here as well. So I'm just going to leave that chart alone. It still goes with my commentary from earlier. I think yours as well.
And I think, something we can point out, stepping back and looking at the results is, from grades 3 through 9, our students are, clearly outperforming peers in the state, which is wonderful to see. I mean, we see it every day, but, these numbers are kind of demonstrative of that as well.
Mm-hmm. All right, here we go. Math. All right, so you can see that our math proficiency remains solid. And there's a variation, as you can see, within the grade levels. Grade 3 has a really strong sense, we'll say number sense, and they have basic operation fluency at that age. So they're pretty well prepared moving on to math, multiplication, division, those types of problems. Grades 4 and 5, when looking at the data, I've noticed some moderate gains there for us. But there's still some ongoing challenges I've noted with fractions and multi-step word problems. So that's an area where I believe we need to dig into a little bit more. Grade 6, performing slightly lower than ELA, but ratios, algebraic equations and expressions, and problem solving are going to be key focus areas for us moving forward.
And again, just to add, as we use this data to identify, grade bands or individual students that we need to provide additional intervention. So we would see from this report, looking at our Algebra 1, while those are excellent results, being that it is such a foundational course for mathematics, we want to definitely dig in deeper in that with our math department and look at individual students and see where we can provide additional support.
And here we are again. I'm not going to attempt to read that because I can't. However, if you take a look at the bars on the far right of each column, you'll see where we fall. So you'll see that, 3rd grade, 4th, 5th, and 6th, you'll notice some slight dips, but remember, 10th grade, different students. And so we have work to do. We are, quite frankly, we're doing extremely well, but I do see areas of improvement and gains that can be made. So we're going to target those with the curriculum.
So the last piece of the NJSLA for state testing is science, which is tested in grades 5, 8, and 11. Again, one of the numbers we consistently see as a concern is in 8th grade. While our students are outperforming the state, we do see, a number like 29% as being proficient. It's concerning in that when you see the results at the upper levels with our students in their high school classes and in advanced placement, which we'll get to shortly, it is a number that is concerning. A few years ago when we did our curriculum rewrite, we really dug into the test itself. So now moving forward, we're going to utilizing our Linkit tools for analysis, for doing some benchmark testing, just to give, put more of these tests in the kids' hands, just to, that doesn't, I believe, reflect clearly not our students' capabilities, because those same students are doing extremely well on the reading sections, and there's a lot of reading involved with the science part of these tests. So it is a concern, something that we have a good game plan to address that. Anything you want to add for?
Just a little. I think that also in looking at the scores, one of the things that we may need to emphasize, especially for grade 5, to kind of help bolster, because I see the drop by the time they're in 8th grade, is that we may need to look a little bit more at the scientific inquiry. I think that we need to do a little bit more in terms of experimental things, hands-on things that they can kind of take with them, because we're losing something when we move from grade 5 to grade 8. And so that'll be something that we need to address and focus on. I'm not. I'm just.
Well, this one's definitely a little bit better than the other one, Dr. Harris.
It is indeed. Looking at grade 5, I mean, as you can see, the gain there has been moderate, if any, so it's, we're stable, but the goal here is to actually break past that number. And that's what we would like. We'd like to be past that, I think it's like 64. Did I get that right? Mm-hmm. Great. Around 64, we'd like that number to be up into like 80s, 90s, try to reach for that goal. Right now, we'll take 7. We can break through that ceiling. What's the goal?
All right, so the next assessment is the statewide NJ-GPA graduation proficiency assessment. This is administered to all 11th graders during the month of March. And this is the state's graduation assessment requirement. Students that do not pass, and as you can see, going back to what we were talking about earlier with the ELA scores in 7th, 8th, and 9th grade, by the time they're taking a very similar test in 11th grade, almost 100% of our students are demonstrating what are considered graduation ready. So that's fantastic, and we want to build on that. We do have students that do not pass the GPA. It's a very small amount of students, but we do work with our team to ensure that all these students meet this graduation requirement. First, they would retake the NJ-GPA in the fall, and that unlocks their ability to utilize the PSAT or SAT as a graduation requirement. And then for students that still have not passed that, and sometimes we have like a handful of students per mathematics that are struggling, then we do what's called a portfolio assessment. That usually happens after the new year, and they work very closely with one of our math teachers, and they identify the standards that the students are really struggling in. They do go through the portfolio, gets submitted, and Mr. Phoenix is here. He does a great job working with the teachers to administer that. And then at least for the last 5 years, we've been 100% hit our mark with getting the kids ready for graduation. So with both the NJSLA and NJGPA, while these numbers we're seeing are great trends, we're administering a new test actually starting tomorrow. It's called the NJSLA and GPA Adaptive. It's a different vendor. We're going from Pearson to Cambion. It's an adaptive test, which, apparently, it's going to adjust the questions as the students are taking. So it's going to be a task, I think, for our district team to kind of sit back and compare these results to previous. Now, tomorrow we start our field test here at the high school, tomorrow and Thursday, and then next week we continue on with our upper grades to get us ready to administer these new tests in the spring, which we're being told that we're going to count in the spring, but for now it's just a field test. But it's, it was a late drop, right? This is something that came down from the state as we were starting the new school year, but we kind of dropped everything, and we have a great team here. We have tech people, Janelle and me, and our administrators, our school council, everyone's kind of, all hands on deck. And if you're walking out, peek your head into the cafeteria, you can see everything's set up. It's looking good. And, we'll see how it goes tomorrow, but, we're going to learn from it, and we're going to adapt. Yes.
Okay, board members, do you have questions for our administrators? Yes, Heather.
Yeah, a couple of years ago, I know one of the schools I taught at, we looked at the science NJSLA, and we were shocked how reading comprehension based it was and how little science it correlated to what we'd actually done in class. And I'm just curious about, since there's such a big difference between the 5th grade and 8th grade test scores, that if your science people had looked at the tests, are they like different in feel, or like, it's just weird to me that there's a big dip down and it's not like kind of constant. Did you guys look at, do you even have access to like test versions?
So they did take the actual test themselves. They sat down and went through the problems to really get an inside look. And, when you look at, a big part of it is reading, and you look deeper into the these results for the NGIS SLA reading, you see, that type of reading is a little bit, there's a slight drop compared to, literary reading, right? So informational text is something that we can definitely emphasize a little bit more. But, I think, we'll talk a little bit more about Link It, right, Winnie, at some point. We just started using it or get an introduction to it at our PD a few weeks ago. So our next step is to kind of, work with different departments on what's appropriate for, like with science, we'll look at some of the sample tests. With other departments, with math, they want to see, how they can use the data more. So, yeah, it's puzzling, right? I mean, it's something that, we see across, I mean, you can see by the state results, but, I believe we can do better. So.
Question on those eye charts where it says same grade, different student. What does that mean? I mean, what do you mean by different students? Same grade, different students.
So are we going back to one of these?
Yeah, any of those. What does that mean? Oh, you mean the years, the years.
Yeah.
Got it. I thought it was, different between ELA and math. Okay, got it.
So I'm actually glad you're on this slide though, because with geography and algebra, is that 2? We hit 100%.
So I think what we're looking at is, you can see it's the geometry, the middle school students who took geometry versus the high school students who took geometry. So probably there's a very extremely small sample of middle school students who were taking geometry at that point, obviously scored, almost like a perfect on the grade, whereas in the high school is the bulk of your students in either usually 9th or 10th grade taking geometry, much larger sample of students. So I think what happened is that the tests on this graph is being split by different populations taking the same assessment.
Those eye charts are actually from Link It. We've uploaded all of our data and they can make us these cool eye charts. I put them in there. Not positive response here, but what I like about the eye charts is it shows you the drop after the pandemic and then the rebuild. And that's really the picture I want you to get from that is you could see that because at the bottom it's the years. So if you look at, language arts or math, you see that definitely when we were coming out of the pandemic, all the scores across the board dropped. And then we've been doing this slow rebuild as we catch students up, and we're pretty much at pre-pandemic levels now. So that was important to say that we have done that work. So that's really what the purpose of those eye charts were. And to check your vision, so a little bonus.
And I think statewide, that's been the big concern among educators is how are students coming back from the pandemic. So that's reassuring. And thank you for explaining, the rationale behind thinking about how the numbers, what it means for students, because we all know a test is only as good as what it tells us about students. In your training for the NJSLA and GPA adaptive, did they talk at all about comparability of results between when the adaptive test and the non-adaptive test?
They may have, but I didn't catch it. So we are right now in full mode of, how to, build it out from creating the rosters to assigning tests to creating sessions to the logistics of administering a test. I think after that, we'll sit down and reflect on that, how it went. We're doing it a little differently than Ridgewood Avenue, which is good. We're kind of seeing 2 different ways to do it. And then, I think we'll see like what these results mean, what kind of, cut scores they're going to set, how the scales are going to use. Like I really,
Yeah, this is
not a
field
lot.
testing. They have nothing. This is
I know,
this is the data
because
to see
people
what
at
to
the
do with
state
it.
level have been asking, first of all, they ask will the field test results be available? And the answer is no.
Right.
So you will be kind of, for all of the effort that administrators and faculty have put in, you'll be flying blind a little bit on this.
yeah, just to put it in perspective, I hope nobody from the state DOE is watching this, right? We're okay, right? So when we were building it out a couple of weeks ago, I think it was, and we created our rosters, and then we're like, okay, let's see how we assign a test, and that whole section of the delivery platform was grayed out still. So they're dropping it
Right.
in real time, and then on top of that, God, I don't want to turn this into a gripe session, but
I know.
so they gave us like a 3-week window to administer this assessment starting Monday. Nobody does it on Monday, right? You do it on Monday, you're crazy of all the problems. Within that 15 days, we lose. You can't administer it on election day, so it gets shut down. The teachers' convention, election day. No, I'm sorry, Veterans Day. I said election day. It was 4. And then Halloween. Like, who's going to administer a test on a Halloween? Right? It'd be crazy. It'd be totally crazy. So of the 15 days, it's really 10 workable days to do this. And then again, you take away that first day, and we have a story of a colleague who tried doing it on first. I don't know why, but there were some issues that came up. We always let everyone else figure those mistakes out, and then we come in behind that.
Board members, other questions?
I was curious, for English language arts, 8th to 9th grade, you see like a 13 to 15 percentage point drop. I'm curious if that's unique to our district or that you see that across similar districts in the state. I think it was like the first slide.
So ELA.
Yeah, so between 8th and 9th grade.
Yes.
About,
And that was the group I was speaking about earlier is, if we see trends in the 80s of meeting or exceeding, and then we see a dip like that, that's a group that we're going to take a lot closer look to it.
yeah, I
But
was
as
curious,
far-
have you been able to decipher if that's unique to our district or could it be to the tests? I don't need an answer.
We'll
Just
get
say-
back to you on that.
I'm just
yeah.
curious. Okay.
Any other questions? Thank you, Dr. Harris and Mr. Lawler. We appreciate that in this testing window, you are building the plane while flying the plane, right?
So Betsy, I have a lot left. Yeah. Okay. I don't even know if that was like the closeout, but we got what's next? Seal by literacy. All right, so moving on. So that
Yes.
handles that kind of takes care of the state testing.
Not over.
So the seal by literacy is we're in our 3rd year of administering what's called a stamp test. It's one of the state-approved tests for students to demonstrate a certain level of proficiency in a world language, right? And we administer it for French, Spanish, and Chinese in the high school. This is administered during junior year for our students that are enrolled in the level 4 honors classes. There you can see our numbers for class of 2025, and then in parentheses would be the previous year class of 24. And you see the numbers are very comparable, and that's nice too, because the class of 2025 was very small. It was kind of like an outlier group of almost like a full section less of students, about 120, where our normal class is about 135, 140. And what's nice about it is when the students achieve what's called the state seal of biliteracy, it's a notation on their transcript that shows really a commitment, right? A commitment to learning a second language. They've been proficient in a world language as well as English through their NJGPA. And again, big credit from our world language department for preparing the students and again, taking the time to administer these assessments. And they hit on all the core areas with world languages. It's listening, speaking, reading, and writing. Next up are the SATs. And you can see starting from 2025 and counting backwards to 2019. Now the SAT and what follows next are the ACTs. These are assessments that are not administered at Glen Ridge High School. The students will sign up for the test on their own and take at a different location. A lot of our students take it during junior year, but then also well into senior year as well. As we speak to our school counselors, you can kind of see some trends from coming out of COVID where a lot of schools moved away from using SAT and ACT for admissions and went into like test optional. But the conversation now that they're hearing from admissions reps and we're seeing with the data is that more schools are going back to utilizing these standardized assessments just for the sheer volume of applicants that they are receiving. It's just a way for them to, to compare and contrast different populations throughout the country. But again, with the class of 2025, it's a small group. You can see 101 elected to take the SAT at some point. Results are very good. This slide shows the percentage of students who scored greater than 1,000, all on the left, to greater than 1,400 on the right-hand column. And then down there, the counselors pulled some ranges from different universities that our students have applied to. So you can kind of look at some areas of, comparable where those scores would fit into. And then this slide points out Glen Ridge's results, our students' results to area schools. So you can kind of see where they did reading and writing and mathematics, and the total scores to different schools that we would kind of consider, comparable districts as far as performance and population. And these are the ACT results. We clearly see that more of our students elect to take the SAT in recent years. The number of students taking ACT is dropped off, not significantly, but noticeably. And here you see again similar graph to the SAT, how many students scored above, equal or above 20 on the ACT or greater than 29. And then the last portion of my presentation tonight is advanced placement. Our students do continue to challenge themselves with the number of AP courses and exams they are taking. AP exams are administered by our school during the month of May. Students in grades 9 through 12, with primarily grades 11 and 12 enrolled in AP classes, although we do see a growing number of students in 9th and 10th grade. The number is a slight downtick from the previous year, again, because we did have a smaller senior class, but this current year we have, we're going to set a new record, 336 students taking 956 exams in May of 2026. And again, I think credit that is to just our overall philosophy towards advanced placement. It's being very inclusive. The types of course offerings we do provide broadens that accessibility to students in the arts, as well as in STEM courses. And STEM, I'll get to in a minute, is an area where we're really shining, which is really great to see with our students. And here you can see just a graph form from going back to 2013 to 2000, and this past May and 25, just the steady growth of students enrolled as well as in the exams that they are taking. But these are just numbers. All of this is just numbers. There's obviously a lot of stories behind it, right? Again, I'll give a shout out to our STEM programs. Chemistry with Ms. Kalra, physics, Mr. Panabianco, computer science, Mr. George. Our calculus, we had Ms. Chamberlain went on maternity leave last year. Her replacement, Ms. Palladino, stepped in, and we didn't skip a beat. Our Calc A, B, B, C scores were right there. Oftentimes a whole point higher than peers in the state. Again, that's on a 5-point scale. We're doing phenomenal stuff. But again, this goes to all the tests, right? NJ, SLA, GPA, all the way through the AP. Just the amount of effort and care that goes into making sure that the students are set up for success here. That's our testing coordinators. Obviously, that's our school counselors, our tech team, and all these tests are now administered on digital devices. So there's a ton of stuff going on in the background to make sure that the devices are ready, that we have enough devices, that they're prepared, that our students have loaners, everything. The building administrators, right, our custodians. In a moment after this meeting's over, this place will be transformed into a testing center for tomorrow. All right, we're going to stay after and get it all set up so it's ready to go tomorrow. The teachers, proctoring, the flexibility when their class is displaced or half their class is testing and the other half isn't, and maybe their classroom had to be moved because we're using it for testing. Just that flexibility, as well as obviously preparing the students for the success that you're seeing. And then lastly, our students, right? Our students who put all the hard work in, 6 AP classes this year. It's like crazy, right? And their families, right? The support, the expectations, and just we don't get a lot of pushback for testing, where you see in other communities. And I think while we say sometimes we test a lot, there's value in just the experience in doing it. All our kids are going to be continuing their education in some form. There's entrance exams, there's licensing exams when they're professionals. When you get to that point, I love sports, right? A lot of reps, a lot of practice. When you get into that situation, you're a lot more comfortable with it. So looking back, a lot of this is great practice for our students as they look to continue on to their education and their profession. So very proud of everybody involved in all this. And just if there's any other questions.
Questions, board members?
I had a question about the AP exams. You had a breakout for virtual. So I think for the last year, this slide before this, it was like 34 and then 6 virtual. Are the 6 part of the 34 or are those additional? So
those are courses that we don't offer, that students are able to take a class and then take the exam in through virtual high school. So that's one avenue. Then we often have times that students may elect to do, well, that's subject. So sometimes students take exams if they say are a native speaker in a world language and that we don't offer the class, they'll take the exam as well. But so for example, some of those virtual that we see that are very common are like AP government and politics. We have students that usually, it's a more popular one. AP environmental science is a popular one. So now there's even new ones. There's cybersecurity. So if we can't offer it here, then they have that option to do it through virtual high school. And actually that's, the virtual high school is kind of like a testing ground for it. So if we do see a lot of students taking a course like years ago when they were doing econ, like there's a lot of interest here, let's at some point offer it here in the building. We send people out to get trained and then we do it here because while virtual is a great opportunity, I don't think it substitutes what they're getting here in the buildings.
Other questions, board members? Now, we're sure we have no more tests, right?
No, the last thing is just the
AP
recognition. Sorry, the recognition of what our students are doing. You can see the different ways that College Board recognizes achievement. Some of the awards that the school has received outside of just performance, but you can see enrollment in our computer science programs with our female population, which is something they want to celebrate and recognize, which is great. We had 13 capstone certificates awarded. The capstone program is another great program we added about 10 years ago now, Winnie. Right, really teaching kids, college level types of skills, right? How to collaborate, how to, develop a research question, how to collect data, analyze it. It's a really great program. And then these are just some other recognitions for the district. Again, that 99% graduation rate and the sheer number of students who are continuing their education, it's a credit to the community as well. And then next steps, Winnie, do you want me to, is this something you wanted to jump in on or?
Next steps. This year we increased the use of Linkit. We're even training the high school staff and pre-K to 12 can now use this and look at the data. All the data that you saw presented this evening has been uploaded to Linkit so that you can look at a student and see every different type of assessment they've taken. And teachers are learning to use those tools. We're not experts yet. We're crawling, but we're going to walk and then we're going to run. So we also this year started the initial implementation of online DIBELS testing. They used to do paper pencil. It's aimed at reading levels, reading fluencies, and that was obtained through a grant. And then we have full implementation of MTSS now. That's multi-tiered support. And as John alluded to, tomorrow's the big day for the high school. NJSLA adapted field testing tomorrow so that we'll become experts so that when we give the test in the spring, our students are ready, our staff is ready, and it will be fine. And I'd like to thank the principals because you could really tell through the passion of their presentation that they own their own data, they're proud of it. And 950 AP exams, I don't know of any school with our enrollment that does something like that. And that really does speak to the inclusivity of our AP program and giving students lots of opportunities. Thank you, guys. It was
Thank you.
riveting. Okay, we have another presentation. Janelle. Jack DeWitt is going to give us the student safety data presentation. More numbers.
Oh, there we go. All right. Good evening. I'm here tonight to present about a few things. So we have to, twice a year, we present out on our student safety data report. And we also have our self-assessment, which is our HIB grade report, which happens at each of the buildings. So we're going to talk about both of those tonight. Twice a year, we have reporting periods. This is reporting period 2 that was sent into the state in August. And this is reporting from January of this school year, or last school year, through June 30th. It's the student safety data system, which is an electronic system. We upload all of the data to that from our other system, which is Hibster, where we do all of our investigations through. We also have to upload twice a year the number of physical restraints, mechanical restraints, seclusion, and timeouts that happen for special education students. That's required back in 2022. That was something that the governor had added in, and it was a mandatory collection period that started at that point. We had actually started that several years prior to that. We have a PCT, a Personal Control Technique Committee, that started about 8 years ago. And we have members from across the schools, administrators, teachers, some other people that are on that. And we actually do our training within house. Ms. Zaloni, who's our behaviorist, Mr. Holguin, who's one of our school psychologists, they actually do the 2-day training. And every year they do an updated training to refresh people on that. Currently, we have 39 people that are across the district that are trained. If they need to call in, the building administrators, the school administrative assistants are the ones that would call down, and they would implement anything that's needed. They always start with verbal de-escalation first if it's an issue that's arising. Sometimes it does escalate, but that's very few times, which you'll see by the following slides. Last year in reporting period 2, which was January through June, we only had 2 incidents where we had to implement physical restraint. Both of those incidents happened at Linden Avenue School, and they were both very short periods of time. The only time that they implement a physical restraint is if a child is going to hurt themselves, they're going to hurt someone else, or if they're going to cause some type of property damage, which is going to do either of those things. So there was 2 incidents that happened with our special ed students during that time. If we look at the total number of incidents that occurred across last year, there was only 4 incidents. So there was a total of 3 at Linden and 1 at Ridgewood. Again, this is our special ed students. And when this does happen, the school nurse becomes involved, the parents are notified, the building administrator has to file a report. So we keep data on that. And again, we've been doing that well before 2022 when it was required. You'll notice that there is no seclusion. We do not have any seclusion. There is no mechanical restraints and no combination of restraints and seclusion that we do in district. The next part of what we have to report out is our incidents that happen, any investigations that occur. So you'll see by the following slide, number of violence, vandalism, substance, weapons, and HIB confirmed that occur. The definition for violence, vandalism is up there. I won't go into that, but I will mention there's also other incidents leading to removal. That's an incident that occurs. It is something that's found not to be an HIB, but it does involve a student being suspended from school, in school, out of school suspension. That happens, and we have to report that also. So this is reporting period 1 that we had. This was already uploaded and submitted. We're reporting out now on reporting period 2. Last year, there was, this is for, again, from January through June, there was 1 total incident that occurred. It was an HIB that was confirmed at Glen Ridge High School. There was 5 incidents that were leading to removal that did cause a suspension of some type. And there was also 4 HIB investigations. Those were things that were alleged, but it didn't meet the criteria of an HIB. And at Ridgewood Avenue, there was 6 alleged HIBs. None of those were found out to meet the criteria. So we had a total of 10 alleged HIB investigations that occurred, didn't meet that criteria. They could have been code of conduct. Most likely they are. When we see them, it's something that happens. There are consequences. And over the last few years, we've been putting a lot of restorative action, restorative practices in place for those situations. So on the next slide, I've just combined across the school year just to kind of take a snapshot of it. There was a total of 19 alleged HIBs. In addition to that, there was 2 confirmed HIBs that occurred. There's actually a third one. Sometimes they get a little wonky. Something happens at the end of the school year. One did occur at the end of June. That will be reported out on our period 1 for this year. So for the 25-26 school year, that will be reported on there. The one HIB incident that did occur in the spring, which was January through June, it was a type of bullying was verbal. It was found to be intentional, and the nature of the bullying included race, color, ancestry, and/or origin. Appropriate actions were taken. We never list those up there because that could identify the student, especially because it's such a low number of students that are found to have incidents. Across last year, there was the 2 that were confirmed. Both of them were verbal. Both of them were intentional. I've listed the nature of the bullying. It's those same things I just mentioned. And additionally, mental, physical, or sensory disability was what came up. Again, appropriate actions were taken on both of those. We also do have to report out the number of trainings and programs that we do across the district. And we'll talk about that a little more on a following slide. But in reporting period 2, there was a total of 34 trainings that occurred across the district and 29 different programs. For the school year, there was 67 trainings that occurred across the 5 buildings and 70 programs that happened across the buildings. Here's a few examples of the trainings that have occurred. I leave Capturing Kids' Hearts up on there for Central, Forest, and Linden. That's something that last year was year 1 of that. We've entered in year 2. The staff at the buildings had a refresher on our PD day about 2 weeks ago. And I know Ridgewood Avenue had their training. Dr. Harris led that. We also had on our PD day, staff members were selected to be process champions, people that would be able to lead Capturing Kids' Hearts, some of the initiatives that go on in the buildings. So there was about a dozen people, I think, that actually got added on to our process champions across the buildings. Mr. Lawler is just going to talk a little bit about some of the things that are happening up here as far as an example of trainings and programs. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. DeWitt. Just to highlight a few of the programs that we've implemented at the middle high school the last couple of years. We meet at least 2 or 3 times a year with our safety team, which is led by our HIV specialist, Caitlin Riley. She does a nice job of kind of presenting the data that gives us areas that we can target or what we consider like HIV hotspots. 2 areas that we've kind of identified are obviously with our middle school population. And a lot of the alleged HIVs come out of that cohort just in the nature of conflict. As we see oftentimes with that age group, that their friendships are changing. They're very focused on identity. And so what we implemented was a peer mediator program. That is a group of juniors who apply, and they're trained in different areas of mediation to provide another outlet, another intervention, kind of more of a restorative practice when we have conflicts with our middle school students. The flip side of that too is the high school students are getting great opportunities for leadership roles, to be mentors, and then oftentimes they do push into the SEL cycle class with our 7th graders. And every 7th grader goes through a 6-week cycle class with our middle school counselor where they talk about different areas. So the peer mediators often come in and teach lessons with those students, which is great. Another area that we identified as a hotspot at the high school level is through oftentimes in our athletic programs, when we see at practices or games or oftentimes between different teams. So with that additional training for our coaches, These are, HIB and reporting procedures are at the preseason meetings with the coaches. And then Mr. Hill, our athletic director, often polls our team captains, and they go to various leadership and training workshops so they can set good examples for their peers. In the broader sense, when we look at programming, something that we really believe a lot in is just cultural awareness and appreciation. We see with talked a little bit about the World Language Department and, the Seal of Biliteracy, but they do so much more in terms of, field trips and bringing in guest speakers. There's special events. I don't know if anyone got to this past Friday, the Diwali celebration that the API Club with the GRA sponsored. It was great, great food and dancing. They had an instructor there teaching Indian dance. So there's a lot of things that we're doing to really expose students to different cultures, and I think that just creates and improves the overall climate. And I'll hear tomorrow if I don't plug the Lunar New Year celebration in February, so make sure when that comes out that everyone gets there. That's Miss Stang. She does a wonderful job. It's so much fun, and it's a great experience. So if you have a chance, usually it's like the second week of February, right? So if you have a chance to come out to the high school, the whole community's welcome to be a part of that. So. Yeah. Sure. Thank you. Yeah.
Can I ask a question before you go, Mr. Long? Peer mediators versus peer leadership. Peer leadership is for seniors who who facilitate over 9th, 10th, 11th grade, and then peer mediators are for juniors who facilitate over the 7th and 8th grade.
So the peer mediators are selected from our current junior class, and they primarily work with middle school students, but as far as like the instruction, they're pushing into the 7th grade cycle classes. The peer leaders are seniors who, it's a class that meets every day. They have to apply to get in, and then they're doing various lessons once a week with our 8th graders. So our seniors are working primarily with the 8th graders, the 11th graders with the 7th graders. And peer leadership are more about lessons and discussions, whereas in the peer mediators is like if we've identified a conflict and the parties would like to seek an alternative way to try to resolve that, the peer mediators would then be facilitating those discussions to try to resolve those conflicts. So it's two separate groups, really kind of targeting different populations, but really it's mostly upper high school working with our middle school population.
And how do they get pulled into helping these conflict situations? Like when a conflict arises, the guidance counselor would bring them in to talk to the students?
Yeah, so that's a good question, because it would be something that would be brought in at the very end, right after a conflict has been fully investigated. We've talked to the parents. We put it out there as another alternative intervention versus instead of just going with the disciplinary, we say, hey, we see that this is a conflict between two students or multiple students. This is a way that we could try to facilitate to come to some sort of resolution. But it would be very much, it's not the first go-to, and it's often done after a lot of other things have been put in place by the adults. And it's supervised by a middle school counselor.
And what's the success rate? Is it better when, two kids who are in conflict talk to a upperclassman peer? Is the resolution better? Are we seeing any success with that type of resolution?
I wish I had an answer. I think it's hard to say it's overall works better. It's case by case, depending on the students involved. What's nice about it is that oftentimes the high school students have lived through that not very long ago, where it's like, oh God, was that 30 or 40 years ago? Oh my God, it's been so long that, they've lived it. We try to match the students in similar kind of situations. So if it's a conflict that's happening in rec sports, we try to pair them with a peer mediator that is in athletics, so you try to find that similar interest. And oftentimes the middle school students are more receptive when they hear it from a closer peer than another adult telling them.
Thank you.
Sure.
I'm just curious because at my school, they recently had a HIB training for the students.
Mm-hmm.
And it might be new because I don't remember it before, and it might have been grade specific actually. But I'm just wondering if we've thought about that or done something like that. I was, just intrigued.
I'm curious if you could forward that, specifically what it is. I mean,
Yeah.
it's a topic that we Whenever we have our class meetings, we're reiterating what HIB is and the reporting process and what's acceptable as far as, particularly with language, we see, like what's appropriate
Yeah.
language. But as far as like a specific training, I'd be curious to hear what it is.
Yeah, and I think from what I recall from when we had our faculty HIB training, I think they were going to share the results of like where their HIBs seem to be concentrated with the students to
Sure.
kind of point out where the area was, which makes me think it might have been a grade specific thing.
And we've done that. We've
Yeah.
pulled specific grades at times when we've seen an uptick in certain types of incidents, and we're like, hey, this is what we're seeing. And then we followed up with, parent notifications. But
Any other questions, board members?
I have a question about the district training, but not, but I don't know if you're done, I don't wanna. You had mentioned there was one district-wide training program, and I should probably know this, but off the top of my head, I don't. Can you remind me what the district-wide training program is?
Sorry, back on the mic. Thank you, Mr. Weller. We've had district-wide training with our lawyers who'll come in, they'll do an update on what HIB is. We've gone through scenarios to see how would you work with this scenario? What are some of the things that you might do? What are different practices? Would you find this to be a HIB? Would you not find this to be a HIB? And we've done that with the administrators and you'll see a couple slides down, all of the HIB investigators across the buildings. So it's a district-wide, meaning that the other programs and trainings are really building specific, but that one is with the, I'm going to say there's about 20 of us total. Roughly. You're welcome.
Other questions?
I have a few more slides. So we also had, we have to create a self-assessment. This is something that we do every year. Each of the buildings do a self-assessment. They're looking at 8 core areas, and they have to look at how they're doing as far as the anti-bullying rights are, what the requirements are, and if they're meeting standards. They grade themselves, and it's a great feedback tool because they can look for areas of weakness, of areas that they have strengths, and where they can plan on those trainings and programs for future years. So the data is submitted. It has to be submitted, like, again, once a year. It's actually ready to be submitted and certified by the end of this week. It will go in, and then we will actually get grades back from the state. In the past, that was January, February. Hopefully, we'll be there, and once they are, that'll also be submitted at a future board meeting. I won't go through every core area, but you'll see the core areas are up there, and this will be posted up on the website tomorrow. There's the 8 core areas. If we go to page 2, it has the possible scores. They can achieve a self-assessment score of 78 as a total. The buildings of Central, Forest, Linden, and Glen Ridge High School have self-assessed at 77, Ridgewood Avenue at 76. We also have to report out if we allow for preliminary determination. So when a HIB, when something comes across the principal's desk, they look at it, they can decide if they think it needs to go down the route of an investigation, or if it's something they think clearly does not fit any of the criteria. We do have that in our policy. You'll see that was only implemented twice last year, both times at Ridgewood Avenue School. Those are the anti-bullying specialists at each of the buildings who do go for regular training. Also, the administrators who may be involved in the investigations. They're also, once the data is taken, the investigation is complete. We're using a system called Hibster. That information goes to the building administrator, then goes to Ms. Kiewit. So that's all for that. I wanted to end on a positive because I always feel like I'm like giving this data that's wow. So before we get to that, I will just talk a little bit about student services. We have some new staff on student services this year due to some of our new programs. They have acclimated very well to the district. Mr. Murphy and Dr. Caravella have some new staff trainings they do once a month. The staff has been doing very well. We're only 2 months in, but it's been great so far. Our 2 new programs for student services this year, we replaced ESS. We had Effective School Solutions up here at the high school. The challenge was, could we create that within the school district? So last year, I went to 5 or 6 different schools to look at the programs that they had and have created what's called our balance program, which is building awareness and learning about navigating challenging emotions. It's a high intense counseling program. The difference, or one of the key differences between this and ESS or programs like it, we have a school social worker on staff who actually, if the students are classified, is writing their IEPs. So they're involved more in the academic and educational component, where ESS, it's separated out. They would just work on the emotional part of it, maybe the social stuff, and then they would hand it off to that second person. So this was a little more fluid, where they can actually go into the classrooms, meeting with the teachers, things like that. The second program we have is the our autism program. I think we are in year 8. Program was created. The first program was at Linden Avenue. The students graduated. They moved through. They were doing very well. They went up to Ridgewood Avenue. A couple of the students have now moved up, so they're up here at the high school. So that is behavior education support and therapy, the best program, because I wanted to say our best program was up at the high school. So that is the program that's up here. They have started out, they're starting to do some daily living skills. They're doing some community-based instruction, things like that. The program is running really well. There's about a dozen evening presentations that are occurring also across the year. Out of the special ed audit 3 or 4 years ago, that was one of the things that came up. So we've started those. I worked with our CPAC, who had come up with a handful of topics that they wanted to see that they thought would be relevant. They had polled their constituents to find out. So some of those topics are covered. We also have SPAN is doing a couple presentations for us, and a couple of the other organizations. We have 5 or 6 that are actually done in-house with our people, which is great because it's the people that are working with the students during the day and then can relay that information of what they're seeing. So it's a little more organic. And finally, Central School. It's been a great first 2 months there. Having a lot of fun around the kids. It's been wonderful. We had our fire safety visit last week. The fire truck came. It was really nice. In the past, it's just been for kindergarten and pre-K. We were able to extend it. The fire department was fantastic. So we had our first and second graders. They were able to come out, see the fire truck, climb on the fire truck, things like that. The HSA has been extremely supportive. I know Dr. Harris had said that in the past, but we've had some great additions so far. We have a monitor that was put in. Mr. Gomes and Mr. Ahmed had installed it about a month ago. So the teachers are doing what's called the monthly 5. So they're taking pictures of the students during the school day, things that they're engaged in, and we're putting them up on the monitor so they could see them when they're walking through. Finally, Halloween is this week. We had our police visit yesterday. They came in to do a safety talk about Halloween, masks, swearing, trick-or-treating, things like that. This morning, we had caroling for Ridgewood Avenue School. Mrs. Tarabaccia had come down. She had brought students with her. They did a really nice presentation for the students out on the playground. We have our pumpkin walk on Thursday night, which will be nice to see. And finally, Halloween is on Friday. We have parties. We have a parade. The teachers voted to do a group costume. They decided that they were going to be lifeguards. I agreed to be part of it as long as I didn't have to be David Hasselhoff. I will be dressing up. I will tell you, if you see it, it is worth the price of admission of what I'm going to have on. That's all I'm going to say. There will be pictures. So that's all I have. Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Keevan, any other additions to the superintendent's report?
That's all. Thank you.
Thanks to our administrators for coming. We'll go on now with the meeting. We are at the public comment period for comments on agenda items only. We have a small audience, but, and I see him shaking his head. You have 2 minutes if you would like to make a comment. No, okay. And our audience, we lost 50% of our audience during the discussion. So perhaps the other half will return. Seeing that there are no public comments, it is not the first meeting of the month, but we would welcome the report from our student representative.
Hi. Okay. So The high school had a successful PSAT administration last week for sophomores and juniors, and we also had the college fair last week that went really well and had a lot of reputable schools. And we've continued to have daily visits from college representatives, including South Carolina, which visited earlier today. As Mr. Lawler said earlier, we had the Diwali festival in the GRH's cafeteria, which had a wonderful turnout. And looking ahead, the student council will be decorating the hallways this Friday for our annual hallway wars, which is like a Halloween competition between the grades. And then the first marking period will officially end on November 12th. And as for athletics, the boys soccer team won the Super Essex Conference Liberty Division title with a 6-2 victory over Columbia. And the marching band will compete this weekend in the NJ State Championships at both Robbinsville and TSNJ, and again next weekend in the U.S. Bands National Championship in Allentown, Pennsylvania. And all the other sports teams are preparing for the upcoming state tournaments, with brackets being released later this week. The football team's going to face Cedar Grove on Halloween for their first round at 7 p.m.
Okay. Board members, any questions for our student rep? Okay, does anyone else have an announcement from their committee or liaison assignment that is time sensitive?
Just
Okay.
want to say a reminder that the holiday market is earlier this year. It's in November 12th, 14th. I have to look at my notes, but it's usually in December here at the high school. So get your holiday shopping early at the holiday market in November.
Okay, thank you. All right, going on with our agenda. You had in your packets minutes from the meeting of October 7th, executive session and regular session. Any changes to those minutes?
I have one change.
Yes.
On the liaison report for GRAA, excuse me. Just wanted to clarify that the softball batting cage is going to be paid for by GRAA, but the infrastructure for the water mitigation and the power is going to be handled by the school system.
Mhm.
And if necessary, GRAA will contribute to that.
Okay.
So I just wanted to clarify that.
So we'll note that clarification.
And if you need me to give you updates, Barbara, in more detail, we can do that afterwards.
Okay.
Any other changes to either set of minutes? All right, Jocelyn, would you move the minutes as amended?
Sure. I move item M1 as amended.
May I have a second?
Second.
Second from Anthony. Since we've had no changes, Barbara, would you call the roll?
Ms. Akinwande,
Aye.
Mr. Bonnet,
Aye.
Mr. Denard, Mr. DiLorenzi,
Yes.
Ms. Gottlieb,
Yes.
Ms. Graham,
Yes.
Ms. O'Neill,
Yes.
Dr. Yaris Ramos,
Aye.
Ms. Ginsburg.
Yes. Okay. Kristen, would you move the administration items, please?
Yes, I move A1 through A7.
Okay. May I have a second? Second from Ray. Any discussion on the the administration items? All right, Barbara, would you call the roll?
Ms. Akinwande,
Aye.
Mr. Bonnet,
Aye.
Mr. Denard,
Yes.
Mr. DiLorenzi,
Yes.
Ms. Gottlieb,
Yes.
Ms. Graham,
Yes.
Ms. O'Neill,
Yes.
Dr. Yaris Ramos,
Aye.
Ms. Ginsburg.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Anthony, would you move the personnel items, including those on the addendum?
I would like to move items P1 through P13, including the updates on the addendum to items P2 and P12.
Okay. May I have a second?
Second.
Second from Jocelyn. Any personnel items are discussed in exec session. So therefore, Barbara, would you call the roll?
Ms. Akinwande,
Aye.
Mr. Bonnet,
Aye.
Mr. Denard,
Yes.
Mr. DiLorenzi,
Yes.
Ms. Gottlieb,
Yes.
Ms. Graham,
Yes.
Ms. O'Neill,
Yes.
Dr. Yaros Ramos,
Aye.
Ms. Ginsburg.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Heather, would you move the curriculum items?
Sure. We need to re-letter the one on the addendum. It says A and it should be F.
Okay.
I'm sorry, it should be what?
The one on the addendum also says A, so it should probably say F instead.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'll move C1, A through F, including the addendum.
Okay. May I have a second?
Second,
Second from Tricia.
Tricia.
Yep. Any discussion on those items? All right, Barbara, would you call the roll?
Ms. Akinwande,
Aye.
Mr. Bonnet,
Yes.
Mr. Denard,
Yes.
Mr. DeLorenzi,
Yes.
Ms. Gottlieb,
Yes.
Ms. Graham,
Yes.
Ms. O'Neill,
Yes.
Dr. Yaros Ramos,
Aye.
Ms. Ginsburg.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay, before we move the business items, I draw your attention to the donation listed on your agenda under B3 from the Central School Home and School Association, books for SEL and Capturing Kids' Hearts, with a value of about $408,000. Thank you to the Central School Home and School. Ray, I know that you'll convey that to them.
Yeah, Betsy, one correction. It's
Yes.
$408, not $408,000. That would be quite the HSA treasury.
$408. Yes, I'm sorry. It's the HSA does do very well. I'm sorry, $408. All right. Any other clarifications on the business items? Okay. Heather, would you move the business items?
Sure. I'd like to move B1 through B8, including B2, B on the addendum.
Okay. May I have a second?
I'll second. Duval.
Okay. Since I don't believe there's further discussion, Barbara, would you call the roll?
Ms. Akinwande,
Aye.
Mr. Bonnet,
Yes.
Mr. Denard,
Yes.
Mr. DeLorenzi,
Yes.
Ms. Gottlieb,
Yes.
Ms. Graham,
Yes.
Ms. O'Neill,
Yes.
Dr. Yaros Ramos,
Aye.
Ms. Ginsburg.
Abstain on B5, aye on all the rest of the items.
Motion carries.
Okay. We have now come to the second public comment period on agenda items or other items pertaining to the running of the schools. Any public comments? No, he's shaking his head. No. Okay. With that, we're not able to conclude our exec session business in the executive session, so we will be going back into exec session, but we have concluded the business for tonight. There will be no further action by resolution of the board. So may I have a motion to go back into exec session?
Motion.
Moved by Heather. May I have a second? Second from Duval.